take off. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining the webinar. We'll just give a minute to let everyone log in. If you'd like, you could put in the chat where you're dialing in from. It's always interesting to see whereabouts in the world everyone is. As this is being attached to SFIA Week in Australia, I think we have a lot of people from Australia and New Zealand on the call. And we've also had a great lot of interest in the topic. And we've had running the thing twice, so we'll be doing another one in 9 hours to catch the other time zones. Hello, Emily, Ian, Phil, thanks for that. And Grant, nice to see you again, Grant. Okay, we'll get going. So what we're talking about here is implementing SFIA for work integrated learning. And we've got two examples, both attached to degree courses at universities. But part of the background is that we're really interested in picking out some of the key approaches to this and seeing how they can be applied both in other educational environments for different levels of learning and also in the workplace. So we're trying to share this now as an example, but encouraging participation and sharing of ideas as we take this forward. And my name is Peter Leather. I'm the Updates Manager of the SFIA Foundation. I'm going to provide just a brief background to this, but it's an important background to how Martin and Fraser have approached this. Then the bulk of the webinar is going to be Martin and Fraser talking through their experiences, not just what they've done, but some of the why and the how in order to bring the thing to life and to give you some ideas about some of the challenges in terms of implementing the work integrated learning. We'll also then leave time. We're keen to have some Q&A opportunities. We've got quite a large number of people on the call, so it will have to be done via the chat. And then we do want to leave some time to talk about next steps. As I say, we're keen that this isn't just a one-off event, that we can use this to drive some activity within the SFIA community. Martin and Fraser will introduce themselves just before they started speaking, just to try and streamline the webinar. So what you will have already had if you'd registered, hopefully you saw the link, was the set of questions that Martin and Fraser have devised. The document shared was just the questions. These have been worded this way because what was clear when Martin and Fraser were exchanging how they'd approach their work is there's different ways of tackling the same requirement. And Martin and Fraser were keen not to be saying, well, we've got the one right answer, but this is how we tackled it, given our circumstances and our aims and objectives of what we were doing. But between the two, they could work out a common pattern of the types of questions they were needing to ask themselves in order to design the program and the approach. So the questions have been worded that way. So a few things to think about, other questions that you might have if you're running a program like this that aren't covered on here. And in terms of the answers to these, we will be getting to those both on this call, but a separate document we have got which describes how Martin and Fraser approached it. I will put a link to this document again in the chat shortly. Another bit of background to give is the questions refer to soft and hard skills within SFIA, and it's quite deliberately done that way. And what we're trying to recognise, or what Martin and Fraser have done within programs, is to recognise the difference between the business skills, behavioural factors that are in SFIA, and the generic attributes, the autonomy, influence, complexity, how they might be assessed and developed, and the more technical hard skills in terms of how those are developed in the workplace. What's the balance? how do each of the programs address both of these? We know that there's, of course, within the industry, debate about what they should be called. So we didn't want to have this call about should they be called soft skills and hard skills or other things. That's an interesting topic that would probably derail slightly where we are at the moment. And again, just for those who are not familiar with what's in SFIA, the types of soft skills are there on the left-hand side. So collaboration, communication, decision-making, etc. And then some examples of the professional skills that are within SFIA as well. So the balance between the two. And within SFIA, these are integrated in terms of how they're designed. So that's that background to that one. And then just to give you a sense about what the document, the completed document looks like. So for each of the questions, we have a response, an answer, a set of an explanation of how it's been implemented in each of Cardiff University and the University of Strathclyde. So that's a really valuable document to take away and look at. But then what we're keen is to think about, well, what else would there be there, or how do I address these? Or if I'm designing a program, what would I be doing in this space? So for this webinar, there's a lot of questions there, and we thought it might not be the most the best format to go through all the questions twice. So what Martin Fraser has done is pick out some key questions that in their mind was really useful or important to share with you. And this is partly then to give you a demonstration of what's behind the questions, but also then to make the webinar flow nicely in that. So these are the questions we're going to work on, and we're going to go through them individually, and Martin or Fraser are going to just describe what and how they've done it against each of these. So next up, Martin, can you introduce yourself and what your House of SFIA is used in Cardiff University?
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. My name is Martin Caminada. I'm a lecturer at Cardiff University at the School of Computer Science and Informatics. And I'm the module leader of the placement program at Computer Science and Informatics. The placement program actually consists of two modules. There's the undergraduate module and the postgraduate module. The undergraduate placement module is a year-long placement that is sandwiched between what would otherwise be the second and third year of the undergraduate degree. The postgraduate placement module is also a one-year module. It's about 7 to 12 months. And it is after the taught year, so after year one, but before the dissertation. And this allows students sometimes to do a work-based dissertation at their former placement provider. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Fraser.
So, thank you. Sorry, Peter. Good morning, everyone, or wherever you are. So, I'm Fraser MacDonald. I am from the University of Strathclyde. I'm a teaching fellow in the Department of Computer and Information Sciences. Most of my sort of teaching-related work is around our delivery of degree apprenticeship programs. So, specifically, I look after the work-based learning element of those programs. They're all technology-related degree programs. And work-based learning is a kind of key component of these apprenticeship programs that runs throughout the program. So for those that are not aware in terms of how an apprenticeship operates in the UK, it's a mix of the student being on campus and doing academic activities, along with being in the workplace. And the way our programs generally work is that the student will be in their workplace 4 days a week, and the 5th day will be devoted to their academic learning. For us, is about how we help the students develop competence in the workplace, and about how they record and how they demonstrate competency that they've gained in the workplace.
Okay, thank you, Fraser. So we're going to go now into the first of those questions, and Fraser's going to be first up. So relevant to what we were just talking about. So one of the considerations for anyone designing these programs is to, do you want to use SFIA for the hard skills or for the soft skills? So Fraser, how have you tackled that at University of Strathclyde?
So we use it for both, which is actually an incredibly important part of it for us. So in terms of work-based learning, what we're trying to do is help develop very well-rounded employees at the end of the day. And within the academic modules, we are really helping with them, or should be helping them demonstrate knowledge in particular technical areas. And then with SFIA, what we're able to do is help them frame and demonstrate applied skills within the workplace that are technology related. But also to help develop sort of the rounder, softer skills, which are important to be an employer, to be an employee in their organisation. So for us, it's about the full picture, and that's what SFIA gives us in all of this.
Okay, thank you, Fraser. And then Martin. So now we're talking about what the students need to achieve regarding the hard skills that you've set up for the program.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. We acknowledge that every placement is different. Our students are in quite a different role, quite a lot of different roles. Some of them are about more traditional things like software development. Others are more about application support. And the good thing about the SFIA document is that we can always find some kind of hard skill, some kind of SFIA IT professional skill that matches what they do in the placement. So basically, we leave it up to the student and their supervisor, together with the academic supervisor, to determine what is the most applicable skill. And then we expect the student to reach level 3 by the end of the placement, or more precisely by the time of the coursework deadline in May. So level 3 is required for undergraduate students. For postgraduate students, we require level 4. What does it precisely mean for a particular level to be satisfied? Well, the easiest way to satisfy a level is just to satisfy all the criteria within that level. However, we recognize that there sometimes can be circumstances in which a particular criteria is not satisfied. So, for instance, if a particular criteria of level 3 proc is not satisfied, then the student can compensate this by satisfying some criteria of the next level, so of level 4 of proc. Very occasionally, we have students who do a little bit of everything. So students who rotate through the company, and the first few months they're doing a bit of software development. The second few months they're doing a bit of application support. So the employer wants to introduce them to the different aspects of the business. Now, in that case, it's sometimes hard to satisfy level 3 or level 4 for just a single skill. And what we allow then students to do is to satisfy different criteria of different skills. And then it is up to us as the academic supervisor to assess whether all these criteria together add up to what would be equivalent to satisfying level 3 or level 4 of just a single skill. That's basically how we do it.
So what you described there, Mark, I think is you need a flexible approach, because the real world of work can't be predicted up front by any sort of design of the program.
Yeah.
Okay. So Martin again. So this question is similar to last one, but this one's looking at what students need to achieve regarding the soft skills.
Whereas for the hard skills, the students get to choose them, and they depend on the particular work they're doing at their particular placements. For the soft skills, they don't get to choose which soft skills they have to do. They basically have to satisfy level 3 of the soft skills if they're an undergraduate, and level 4 if they are postgraduates. Now, we do have a little bit of more flexibility in how students can prove this. So for the soft skills, we basically add all the criteria together throughout all the soft skills, throughout all the, what's it called officially in the SFIA document, the generic attributes. And we want students to satisfy at least half of these criteria, at least half of these sentences. And that's what we're basically looking for. And we asked them and the supervisor to certify this by highlighting these sentences, the appropriate sentences in a particular form.
Thank you, Martin. Question from Nick there, which how long are your placements, Martin? That's like one of the questions we get to. No, keep going.
Oh, sorry. Undergraduate placements are 9 to 12 months. Postgraduate placements are 7 to 12 months, even though we very much encourage the students to do a placement of at least 9 months. Why? Because especially for the postgraduate students, they need to get sufficient time in order to show that they meet level 4 by the time of the coursework deadline. So we always advise our students to do a placement of at least 9 months. 12 months is the official maximal. For undergraduate students, we do allow them to go into the summer period with their placements. What they do during the summer periods, after the formal coursework deadline in May, is no longer assessed. So it's basically seen as some kind of student side job. But if the employer wants to extend the contract, we don't have a problem with this. As long as our undergraduate students are back at the university by the time of the induction week, which is either late September or early October. For the postgraduate students, it's a bit more tricky, because they need to be back at the time they have to start writing their dissertation, which is in June. We are currently in discussions with some of the higher ups at the university to get a little bit more flexibility here, which means that our degree program replacements, the postgraduate degree program replacement, would have to be more than 24 months. Possibly to accommodate this kind of flexibility. So this is a bit of an internal discussion we're having right now at Cardiff University. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Martin. Fraser, sorry, I can't remember whether you mentioned how long your apprenticeships go for, but maybe you could.
I can't remember, but the apprentices for us are 4 years in total.
Yeah. Okay, so this question now back to Fraser. So in the workplace or on the programme, who's determining whether the skills are actually satisfied?
So we have a specific role in the university known as a learning advisor, and that's someone who's a member of the university staff who works with apprentices one-to-one on their journey throughout the apprenticeship. So they are all people who have some level of industry experience, so they're well used to kind of knowing the context in which these apprentices are operating. So that person will work with the apprentice over the 4-year period. They'll meet with the apprentice usually twice per term, and that's a one-to-one meeting where they're sort of assessing how they're getting on in the workplace, looking at their progress, and just helping them plot a course over the period of the programme to ensure that they're going to complete successfully when they get there. So the learning advisor is this person who looks at all the kind of submissions that they make, and I'll talk a little bit more shortly about how this is actually assessed. But it's a learning advisor that looks at that and makes that determination. Because we have a sort of a group of learning advisors, bringing standardisation into this is incredibly important. So we've got a number of mechanisms for doing that in terms of making sure that everybody's assessing to the same level and making the same judgments. So we have standardisation meetings, there's lots of guidance for this sort of more critical assessments later on in the programme, and these things are marked by 2 learning advisors as well, just to ensure consistency, ensure the appropriate standard also.
Okay, thank you. And then staying with you, Fraser. So this is looking at any written explanation for satisfying the criteria.
Yeah. So the key output that we're looking for from the apprentices in these programs is a portfolio of evidence. So they use a kind of off-the-shelf e-portfolio management system. And what the apprentices do is they write up their experiences in the workplace as bits of evidence, and then they map it into a portfolio. And we get them to use the STAR format, which probably I'm sure most people are aware of, but situation, task, action, result, which is a nice framework for setting out evidence and helps the apprentice clearly explain the kind of work they've been undertaking in the workplace. But we also get them just to add a little bit of reflection to the end of that as well, just so they're very clear on how that's contributed to their own development. And we also get them to write a statement about how the evidence clearly links to each of the skills or competencies. So they must, at the end, say, this piece of evidence demonstrates such and such because I undertook this as part of the work. And that just really helps them understand the sort of skills that they're aiming for, and helps them understand more clearly how the evidence supports individual skills. The other part of it is, although I said portfolios weren't the main mechanism for assessment, in their fourth year, as part of their final year project and dissertation, they actually write a reflective report on their portfolio as well. And that's kind of summarising where they feel they've met the criteria and how they've met the criteria, and also provides a bit of reflection on that as well. And what it means is that the way we set it out is that they're able to demonstrate that they actually understand how they could demonstrate competency if they haven't had the experience. So sometimes we'll have situations in the workplace where they maybe will not have had the kind of work they need to demonstrate very specific skills. And what we do then say, well, actually explain how you could demonstrate that in the future, and maybe explain people around you how you perceive that they are demonstrating that particular skill and what that would look like for you in the future as well. So that just allows them to round out the skills without necessarily having to demonstrate every single one completely.
Thanks, Fraser, and thank you, Jacob, Gary, and Vicky. I'm going to just pick on Vicky's question first. I think it's directly related to what you were describing previously. So Vicky's asked what support you provide workplaces and workplace supervisors to ensure they understand the requirements so they provide students the adequate experience. Is that one of the other questions we're asking later on, or do you want to answer that now, Fraser?
It feels very familiar, but I'll answer it anyway. So okay. There's a couple of elements to it. So one is that we have a bit of a handbook that we give both the apprentices and the workplace supervisors as well. And in that, it sets out the expectations for the apprentice and also sets out the expectations of the workplace supervisor, so they understand their role and their responsibility in all of this. We do, at the beginning of each academic year, we have a workshop with them as well. So we invite them all to come to the university. We'll run through the programme as a whole, but we'll also focus in on the work-based learning element, and again talk about their responsibilities and talk about how they can help with the apprentice getting the kind of experience that they need to demonstrate that. We give them copies of the SFIA skills as well, and we provide additional guidance on those. So we give a little bit of guidance and say, here's the kinds of things that you might be able to give the apprentice to do to help them demonstrate these specific skills as well. And also there's the opportunity where the learning advisor will also have a meeting, as required effectively with the workplace supervisor if we feel that there's some maybe more information required there, maybe a little bit more guidance from us. So we always listen to what's happening in terms of what the apprentice is saying about their particular workplace situation, and we can intervene and have a chat with the line manager just to help move things along if perhaps they're not getting appropriate experience.
Okay, thank you, Fraser. There's a couple of other questions there, Fraser, you could take a look at. I think we may leave them to the end, but have a check on those ones, and then I'll go to Martin now. So, Martin, so how do you help make sure the students is on track for meeting their expected levels?
So we have, throughout the placement year, we have 3 what we call placement visits. One of these visits, quite often the first one, is done in person. The other 2 visits can be done using a video call. During the first visit, we basically check if the student has properly settled in. The first visit is done 2 or 3 months into the placements. Whether the student is well supported, also some basic checkups on pastoral care. We check whether they are getting sufficient pay, if there's an issue with statutory minimum wage, which there almost never is, by the way. The students are the good thing of IT placements is that they're always paid, almost always. In fact, you need special permission of the placement team if you want to do an unpaid placement. So during the first visit, we also already have a look what would probably be the two SFIA skills that are the most applicable to that particular placement. Even though we only require one SFIA skill to reach level 3 or level 4, we want to have a backup skill as well. So that's why we ask for 2 instead of 1. Then the second visit, which is usually done in December or January, is where we do a snapshot of where the student is regarding the SFIA skills. So we ask then the student to fill in a form that contains their chosen SFIA skill. The student fills in the student version of this form. The work-based supervisor, the manager, fills in the work-based supervisor version of that form. So 2 versions basically, in which they both highlight in yellow which of these criteria are satisfied and which are not. Now, this gives us, as the university, a snapshot to see what is still open, what needs to be worked on during the second half of the placement in order to make sure that all the relevant criteria are satisfied by the time of the coursework deadline in May. So it happens quite often, to be fair, that already all the criteria are satisfied midway the placement, so at the time of the second visit. It's actually quite common. Sometimes we have students where some criteria are still open and unsatisfied, and then we have to have a brief chat with the manager, with the work-based supervisor. Okay, what kind of work can you give to our students to make sure the student is satisfied also the missing criteria by the end of the placement? Then we have the third visit, probably March or April. I think more March, and that is where we can again have a look at where the student is regarding any missing SFIA criteria, even though the main point of the third meeting is to give feedback of the draft report. We allow students to do a tryout of the placement report, which is called the draft report. So they submit that just after the second visit, and then during the third visit we have a look at this draft report. And the good thing is also in the draft and final reports, the students are asked to elaborate on what has been highlighted in the SFIA mapping forms, regarding both the soft skills and the hard skills. So this gives us an additional explanation of why these skills are actually satisfied, why these particular criteria are actually satisfied. Okay, does that answer the question, or is there anything else people would like to ask? Are you using SFIA, the new SFIA assessment badges? No, we're not using that. Okay.
Yes, there's another question, but it's not directly related to what it said. But if you can have what Jacob's ask, and I'll move on to Fraser and give you a chance to consider that one. Thank you, Martin. So, Fraser, we're on to the same question.
Yeah, absolutely. So the role of the learning advisor is absolutely key in all this. So that's the person who will make sure in terms of their portfolio development, they're on track for that. So we've got little checkpoints on the way through to make sure that they've achieved a certain degree of coverage, I guess, by the time they get to certain points within the programme. And so the learning advisor will flag up if we think those checkpoints are not going to be reached at appropriate times. Again, and it also feeds back to, if we think the apprentice is not getting appropriate workplace experience, we can help direct around that and intervene early and make sure that they are going to be on track for completion at the end of the programme.
Thank you, Fraser. And then we're now back to Martin. So now we'll focus on the work-based supervisor and what the programme needs, expects from them.
Okay, thanks, Peter. At the start of each placement, we ask the placement provider, the employer, to sign the placement agreement. This is where we lay out some expectations of the placement provider to the university. Basically, what we want them to do is to allow us to do 3 of these placement visits. And for each of these visits, we would like to have in advance what we call the employer evaluation form. This is some kind of mini mini evaluation of how the student is doing. It's basically just one page. What is going well? What is going not so well? Are there any other comments you would like to make? And we want this form to see this form before the placement visits, because then we can already anticipate, are there any issues that need extra attention or extra time in the visits. Apart from that, we also want to have what we call these SFIA mapping forms. These are the forms I mentioned earlier that contain the chosen skill, the chosen hard skill of the student, plus all the soft skills. And that is where both the student and the supervisor, the work-based supervisor, are asked to highlight in yellow which of these criteria, which of these sentences are satisfied. Back in the day, we used to generate them manually by copy pasting text from the SFIA document into our forms. Nowadays, we have some web-based application that does it for us internally. We shielded it off because, of course, the SFIA information is not supposed to be out there on public, so it's only available to our students on the university intranet. Yeah, so we expect the work-based supervisor to fill in his or her version of these forms midway at the time of the second placement visit, as well as at the time of the coursework deadline. Now, apart from that, we also asked the work-based supervisor to sign off the draft report and the final report. So basically, we asked the work-based supervisor, to declare that to the best of his or her knowledge, this is all correct, and that it doesn't contain any confidential information. If it does contain any confidential information, if there's anything the student would have liked to report on but couldn't do due to confidentiality, then we would like the students to mention this in the report, so that the student will not be marked down because of confidentiality restrictions. And a part of this, of course, we expect the work-based supervisor to properly supervise the students and make sure that appropriate work is being given to reach level 3 or level 4 by the end of the placement.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, now I think this is the question we thought was coming, Fraser. So is there anything you want to recap on, or have you covered everything there?
So I think I covered the second part around the work-based supervisor, just to say around the student. So obviously there is a degree of upskilling required in all of this, and in terms of work-based learning as a whole, there's an amount of work-based upskilling required in all of this, because the whole work-based learning thing is new to them, generally speaking, and the whole writing of evidence and reflecting on your competency is new to them as well. So we do a number of on-campus sessions with them, where we'll take them through things like analysing your strengths and areas for development, doing a bit of personal analysis on that, taking them through how you write up evidence in an appropriate format, and talking about how you link evidence to competencies and such. So those are real quite hands-on sessions for them to get to grips with all of this stuff as well. But the other thing in terms of the support to the student is, again, it's that learning advisor, and that ability to chat to the apprentice about the work they're undertaking and helping them frame it in terms of the SFIA competencies as well as SFIA skills. So that conversation, that dialogue is incredibly important to all this. And through that, we help them understand what those skills actually mean to them in their particular roles.
Thank you, Fraser. And now we're up to the final of these questions, and then we'll get into some more discussion and run through the questions that people asked so far. So we're back to Martin now. So having finished the work-based experience, what's the debriefing that you offer at Cardiff University for students?
For the undergraduate students who finish their placement year is sandwiched in between what would otherwise be the second and third year of their degree program. So they need to go back to the university and do the third year of their degree program. So at the start of the third year, at the induction week, we all invite them to go to what we call the poster session. So as part of the coursework, apart from writing the final reflective report, they also have to create a poster about their placement. The poster is about 10% of their placement mark. These posters have to be submitted by the time of the coursework deadline in May, because they need to be marked at the same academic year. But at the time of the induction week of the next academic year, that's when we invite them all to come over to Cardiff University again and to present their poster. We, as the placement team, we print the posters, we hang them in the corridor and in one of our teaching spaces, and then we invite the year 2 students who will during that year be looking for placements to come by and to talk to the students who are returning from their placements. And this works out pretty well, I have to say. So our returning placement students, they get an opportunity to talk about their placements, and also see some of the other placement students and see what everybody else has been doing. And then the students who are still searching for placements, who are now going into year 2, which is the year at which they will somehow have to find a placement, which of course with support of the university. They get an idea of where the previous cohort of students landed their placements, what they had to do in order to get the placements, what are their experiences, what are the do's and don'ts at the workplace. In previous years, we also had a free lunch, at least for the returning placement students. The university is now a bit under a financial strain, so I'm not sure if we're going to have this year. But in general, we also try to make it a social event for the returning undergraduate students. The postgraduate students, well, the problem is that they are doing their dissertation over the summer period. So right now they have to be back at the university in June. And then by the time of the induction week of the next year, they already have finished their degree program. So we cannot ask them to come over to the poster session. So the postgraduate students they do not have to create any poster. Instead, they have to do an extra section in the reflective reports. What the postgraduate students do have is the option to stay at their placement provider and to do a work-based dissertation there, because they don't have to go back to year 3 of their studies, because there is no year 3 of the studies for postgraduate students. The only thing they have to do is to do their dissertation, and this sometimes can be done together with the placement provider. We have had cases where the placement provider says, well, okay, we would like to give you a graduate position. Can you just stay with us and not go back to the university? Well, they said, well, I still have to do my dissertation, but perhaps this dissertation can be done in the shape of a project that is also useful for you as the placement provider. And as the university, we try to be very accommodating for this, if a suitable dissertation project can be identified. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Anything happening on the chat? No, I don't see anything related to that question.
No, there's not, Martin. So thank you very much, both. I think that gives a good overview. Let's just check where we are next. So I'm going to ask both of you, just to give you a heads up, what you would like to do next with these questions and with the community of people who are interested in SFIA in this type of arena. We have talked about it. I'm just trying to give a sense of where things are, what you'd like to ideally get from after this. So do you want to kick off, Fraser?
Yep. So I think what would be really interesting, I think as a university, we're really interested in terms of employability and in terms of how we make our graduates more employable. And I think any insight from industry around how we can maybe take the approach that we've used in work-based learning and apply that elsewhere, or assist employers with new graduates as well, would be something that we're interested in generally. That would be one element for us. as well as general sort of feedback in terms of our approach and other approaches that other academic institutions might be using as well that could help us improve what we're doing.
Okay. Yes, and I think just again reiterate what I said at the beginning when you both came up with a set of questions. We talked about whether you'd spend lots of time trying to refine and make these a perfect set. We thought, no, in the spirit of this, it's much better to share where things are and the responses, and hopefully get some community contribution to say, look, what does that question exactly mean, or what are the things they'd like to ask. So it's in the spirit of the resource you've created is brilliant, but it's a starting point that we'd like others to take part and contribute to. And Gary's given some examples, I think, there that it can be applied to other types of learning programs as well. So we're keen on having that the same model, if it works nicely, applied elsewhere. Martin, is anything specific or other things that Fraser's not mentioned that you think would be useful to develop from here?
Well, given that we still have a bit of time of this meeting, maybe it would be interesting to see if any of the attendees of this meeting would like to have any other questions treated that we haven't discussed so far. So if you look at the document that has been shared by Peter in advance of this meeting, are there any particular questions that you are interested in? And if so, please feel free to type it on the chat. And then me and Fraser will try to answer these.
Okay, I'll put the questions on the full set of questions on the screen. And maybe just while we'll give people a chance to think about that. Jacob's question. So Jacob hi Jacob, thanks for the comprehensive question. So Jacob has extended the concept of the soft skills to include professional skills. So he's talking about some of the SFIA skills, the ones that are in our bucket of hard skills. So requirements management, stakeholder relationship management, information systems coordination, financial analysis, and cost management. So ones that are not specific to a particular professional domain, whether cyber or software development, but could be considered some more cross-cutting skills. So I think for both of you, the soft skills that you're describing are the ones that we've got in the generic attributes. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Interesting, Jacob. I think that sort of extension to there. I guess within the realm of the program we're talking about here, it would be stretching to include those specific skills in there. Okay. So Vicky, let's pick on Vicky's question. And if you could read through what Gary said, I think we can pick out from there. So Vicky, how do you take into consideration recognise prior learning and workplace experience for career transitioners? Let's start with you, Fraser.
So there's quite a complex answer to that, because it depends is the answer. It actually depends on the programme. So to dig into the weeds a little bit, we have a couple of different apprenticeship degree programmes. One is under English degree apprenticeship rules, and the others are under Scottish graduate apprenticeship rules. Under degree apprenticeship rules, there is a very specific process that takes place at the commencement of study to investigate prior learning, and then we adjust the training plan for those apprentices based on any appropriate recognised prior learning. So there's a formal recognition of that. It is slightly less formal in the Scottish version of this, effectively, and so. Generally speaking, I'm trying to think of an instance where we've had somebody where this has materially affected their programme, and I can't actually think of one. To be honest, it's either been straight from school people who have as apprentices, or somebody who's absolutely doing a career transition, but they're genuinely starting from scratch in this. The only other recognition that we make is that when we use the SFIA levels, so we start on level 2 in first year, and they'll progress through to level 4 towards the end of third year, and then that takes them into fourth year. And what we do is, if it's clear that the apprentice has got appropriate experience at level 2, we'll accelerate them to level 3 earlier in their programme to allow that recognition of their additional experience and the level they're operating at. So that's one way that we can help, just rather than having them spend time on skills at a level which simply isn't suitable for their particular role. So we can accelerate them that way.
Okay, thank you, Fraser. Martin, is anything that you're doing that, I suppose?
I'm looking at this question of Anna Lloyd. It would be useful to know any details of formative trial version of assessment if this is covered through the visits for the placement module. So the assessment, the final report, basically consists of a number of sections. So in the coursework description, we precisely specify what these sections are and what kind of information should go into each of these sections. So section 1 starts with 1.1 about an overview of the placement provider of the company. 1.2 is an overview of the particular section or department or team within the company where the student is doing the placement. Section 3 is a brief overview of the roles and tasks within the placement, section 1.3. Then section 2 is about what we call the soft skills. So what the SFIA Foundation in most of the documents would call the generic attributes. We call them soft skills in the coursework, by the way. At which the students are asked to explain how and why they satisfy each of the criteria that have been highlighted in yellow in the form. Then section 3 is about the hard skills, so the chosen skills like PROC or TEST or ASAP, in which again the student is asked to explain how and why each of the highlighted criteria are satisfied. And for the undergraduate students, that's basically it. They still have to create a poster. And for the postgraduate students, they have to create they have to write one additional section of the report. Now, the coursework description, the report structure of the draft report is the same as for the final report. So the final report is basically the draft report plus the corrections that the suggestions and feedback that the academic supervisor gives during the third visit, plus any relevant work that has been done during the second half of the placement. So that's basically how it works. We do it like this because, well, we're working with IT students. So these students are usually relatively good at the technical stuff, at coding and at all kind of other technical tasks. They're not necessarily very good at writing, let alone reflective writing. So we think we should help them a little bit with this by allowing them to submit a draft report in which they get feedback before submitting the final report. Another way we support them is by what we call the safety net. So a student who reaches level 3 or level 4 for the postgraduates is not going to get a mark below 60%, even if the report is substandard. So in this way, we want to protect students who are doing a really great placement, but who have difficulties writing it up. The other way around also works. If they don't get a level 3 or level 4 for postgraduates, then they cannot get a mark of more than 60, even if they write a really great report. So the marking is basically based on the combination of the reports and the poster and reaching the required SFIA level. Okay, I hope that sort of answers the question. Anything else Peter, is there any other question that I should select here in the chat?
There isn't.
Oh, okay.
No. Ian, I'm going to give you a warning that maybe give you a chance to contribute to some of the discussion that you've been having with Gary on the chat. And I should also check with Martin and Fraser. What would you like to do about people contacting you after the webinar's finished, when people have had a chance to digest the full document and any questions or things they want to follow up with you? Are you happy to have an email address shared with them?
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely fine with me. Yeah.
Okay. So, Ian, you're ready to answer the question. Well, let's go with Vicky first. Thank you, Vicky. After the work experience, do you have any programs or support for students to prepare them for interviews and how they can use their experiences to demonstrate job-ready capability?
Oh, is that a question for me?
Either
Sure.
you.
Okay, I'll take that. Well, we do prepare the students for things like job interviews and assessment center, and we basically, the way the placements work at Cardiff University is that, we don't have a tin of placements ready to dole out to our students. That's just not how it works. Every placement position in industry is in principle a competitive position. So students from other universities can also apply for that. Our task as the placement and employability team is to make sure that our students are in a good position to have a realistic chance of getting it through the recruitment process. So for the undergraduate students, during year 2 of their studies, they have to take a module that's called Enhancing Your Employability, which is delivered by one of the members of our placement team. We also have 3 times a year, we have employability events. I think this week or next week we have, what's it called? Tech Talent Harvest. And the idea is that people from industry come over, give presentations about their respective companies. Also, we often have during these events speed dating sessions between students and employers, and if there's a mutual match, then the student can win a job interview. In the module Enhancing Your Employability, we tell the students how to write their application letter, how to write their CV, being aware that the employers nowadays use AI to evaluate CVs. What particularly do you have to do in order to get through the AI? How to effectively use AI yourself to generate customized CVs and application letters. What to do and what not to do during the assessment center. We have a mock session of the assessment center during that particular module. So we actually do quite a lot, especially for our undergraduate students, in order to get them into the right position to land placements. The postgraduate students, they don't have a separate module for enhancing your employability. Instead, what we do is we give some extra curricular activities that are based on the undergraduate module that are delivered by one of our career advisors. Because the postgraduate degree is the taught part is just 1 year, so we couldn't squeeze too much in it. But the postgraduate students as well, they are very much welcome to join all the employability events. We also have an employability newsletter with all kinds of job offers, graduate positions and placement positions. So we really do our best to make sure our students are in the right position to find their placements.
Thank you,
I hope that answers the questions. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Thank you. And you, Vicky, you followed up and said the soft skills. I know from conversations with another university that they have found that the students who have started to think about their work in terms of those softer skills have felt much more confident in explaining to future employees about what they do in the workplace and the contribution they make that is beyond just, as you've mentioned, their technical skills. Fraser, is there anything you wanted to add to the support you're given for students getting into work?
So it's something that's probably less of a focus for us on the basis of the apprentices are already employed in the workplace, and they are permanent members of staff. I think what has been shown is the fact that our approach in terms of getting them to write up their experiences as evidence in your portfolio and the connection to the much wider set of skills has been really valuable for them in terms of subsequently looking for promotion within the workplace, or the thing we're not allowed to talk about, where they go and find another employer at the end of the programme as well. So that does support, and certainly I've had feedback to say that our approach has been really helpful in terms of interview preparation in those kind of contexts.
Thank you, Fraser. Ian, there's been a few questions from Gary and others around the badging, micro-credentials. Anything that you want to add in a minute or two? I know it's a topic that would take a long time. But...
Well, yes, it will take a long time, but for a minute or two, SFIA was developed for employers, and therefore recognising competence in the workplace is what it's all about. Particularly with regards to placements, that is work in the workplace. So the short answer is, why shouldn't the badges that relate to SFIA skills be able to be issued on the basis of a placement from an academic institution, for example? So I certainly think it's possible to do that. We would like to discuss that with any organisations that want to do it. But the sort of word of caution is, we obviously have to protect what those badges mean. But if they are applicable in the in the academic world by way of learning, workplace placements, etc., then absolutely, why not? Sorry, Peter, you're on mute. I was just going to pick up one point. There was something about the cost. The cost of the individual badge is trivial. It's the cost of the assessment towards that individual badge that can be expensive. But why shouldn't the university be able to do that if it follows the same criteria that the SFIA Foundation requires for commercial providers? So there may be ways of making those costs acceptable in that community. Peter, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll just Terence's question, which is one that we're interested in as well, is try and get together institutions who are using SFIA in their education, learning and employability. We can see, or we know about universities who do introduce their students to SFIA in a employability sense, but not necessarily built into the structured work integrated learning that Martin and Fraser described. And so we think it'd be really useful that we use this as exercise to identify people who are doing that and get together and share good practices. We're not in the mode of directing people or institutions they must use SFIA in this way, but it's really helpful to learn from each other and take this forward. Thank you, Gary. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for asking the questions, and even more thanks to Fraser and Martin, who've taken a lot of time over the past few weeks and months to create these and share their time and expertise in what we're doing. Any chance for any last questions? No. Anything else you need to finish off with, Fraser, Martin, before I go? Are you okay?
Nothing else from me. Just happy to be contacted if anyone has specific questions or wishes to discuss anything further.
Okay. We'll send out the details. We're going to send out the questions probably tomorrow, and the recording of this as soon as we can, and we'll include the contact details for Martin and for Fraser and the SFIA Foundation as well. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Right, I'm now going to press end event. No, I'm not. I'm going to press the stop recording. Stop recording. Okay.